Zituukira 5 immediately nze ngenda kugamba tutandike because wali etandise just like a few seconds. Three, two, one, go. Yes, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. You are watching the Kim Katoto Show, outlook that discusses matters concerning politics within and beyond the bounds of this country. This is a show that motivates the youth to really have a heart that goes out for matters concerning their country, because it really pushes you very far than you can really get yourself. So we are going to have time to discuss matters to do with politics in this nation and beyond this nation, Africa and world over. And with me I have a guest tonight. I'll later on introduce him. We are going to discuss and digest these matters to do with this nation and beyond this nation. We are going to discuss politics in Europe, what is trending. So please give us a like, subscribe, and really like our show. Ladies and gentlemen, join your hands and welcome a friend of mine, a political analyst, a seasoned activist that is going to be with us tonight. He is Jonathan Ogola. We are going to welcome him. Jonathan, you're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
I am Joshua Okurut, and I'm going to be the moderator of this afternoon's show. Please follow through and ask questions where necessary. We are going to discuss the state of the nation, what is trending in our nation tonight. First, what we have had our mind on is the Mpuga issue, the Democratic Alliance. What do you know about the Democratic Alliance? Democratic Alliance is a movement that has come up to really have a sense of belonging to Mpuga. Mpuga, just to have a short description of him, Mpuga is someone who began politics as a youth when he was still a very young man. He got into politics very early on in the Uganda youth minister position in 2006. In 2010, he contested for the Uganda position, to be specific, that is Masaka. He went under a movement called the Army for Change. So in 2021, they got disagreements with DP, and he subscribed to a national unity platform movement that is now a party that he falls into before he resigned as commissioner. So Mpuga Matthias is the man that we are going to talk about, a retired commissioner. So Jonathan.
In fact, he's still serving as a commissioner. He's a former leader of opposition. Yeah, thank you so much once again. This is Jonathan Ogola. I'm glad to be here. Hope you are going to enjoy this show. I said my condolences to the family of Dr. Nabwiso, one of the founding members of FDC party in Uganda. This gentleman died today, the 15th of December, and he has been a very big pillar in FDC, and he has been one of the elders in FDC. So he was the former contestant of Jinja City Mayor, and he lost on FDC ticket to the NNUP Kasolo candidate. So we send our condolences to the family and to the entire country.
Oh, thank you, Jonathan. I also join you in the same spirit to send condolences to the family of Mr. Nabwiso. First, we saw National Unity Platform coming up as a movement to push for change. Jonathan, what is your idea upon the movement that are coming up to push for change? Is this a strategy to oust the current regime?
Which movement specifically?
Is Democratic Alliance a movement that is being formed to oust the current regime?
I would be wrong to answer it yes, because it depends on the preamble from what these people have been organizing. To begin with, first of all, DA is not a new platform in Uganda. This is a group of people. In fact, the players have been playing in different teams, and even the names of this organization, yeah, they have been used somewhere else. I think the only new thing in this thing is the time, because it has come in 2024, but the rest of the things have been existing. Because when you talk about the players, you have Matthias Mpuga. Matthias Mpuga was in Subi 2011, where he first stepped into serious politics. They created what they called the Subi. Majorly it was dominated by Baganda, when they had misunderstandings with the DP and helped them to win an election. In 2015-16, they made what they called TDA, Democratic, the Democratic Alliance, which was headed by Amama Mbabazi. In 2017, the very group joined People Power. Right now, in fact, 2021, immediately after election, these people, the very group, they created what they called the red paper was called the Red Card Movement, which was headed by FDC Katonga, and it was the very group which had the Mavikes, which had the Mukakus, and so on. So right now, in this very year when it was starting, they created what they called the Holy Alliance Movement. The very people, and now they have, last week they came up with what they called the Democratic Alliance, and whereby the word democratic, it came from Democratic Party, it came from the PDP, it came from SDP, the very players that have been participating in this thing for over 20 years are the very people. Meaning the players are the same. The name they just keep twisting. If this side they have started with the other time they remove the and begin with the Democratic Alliance. Same players, same strategies, and the same everything. So when you realize that the players here are people who might, I would say, they are self-seekers, because you will realize that most of them have been people on the day they had their what they termed as a big announcement. It was not aiming at hosting the dictatorship or ending the dictatorship in Uganda, but was against a particular group of people, whereby they got dissatisfaction with the kind of leadership from where they came from, particularly from NUP. And on that day, all the speeches were directing and they were blackmailing the National Unity Platform as a party, not the current government.
Sorry, Jonathan, to cut you short. We have seen pressure groups come up. We saw one before 2021 general elections, the National Unity Platform, that later on came up to turn into a political party. What could be the move that has been fronted by Matthias Mpuga?
Well, individually or personally, I would think that's the best way Mpuga would survive. In fact, this alliance for this time is going to only help him to survive. But the survive is not going to be long term, because you will realize that right now, if Honorable Mpuga, for the 15 years he has taken in power, or as a member of parliament, you will realize that if he happens to go back to contest for the same seat, NUP will deploy every necessary resource to make sure he doesn't go through. And I have tried to test the ground. He doesn't have the ground in Masaka. And if NUP means to front a serious candidate, most of the Mpugas, the Abedis, and so on, they will not regain their seats. So the best thing Mpuga has done is to make himself a national figure, running for entire country, whereby he's going not, he may not even get 0.0 something, but putting him at a level of comparing him with some other national leaders though he's forcing himself to a national level.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan Ogola. What do you make of Matthias Impuga's relationship with Mnup? Should we say this is a relationship that has gone sour? What do you make of Matthias Impuga's relationship with the National Unity Platform camp?
Well, it may not be a serious issue because majorly most of the players in this game, they have had come up to fight the status quo, majorly to end the current leadership that has existed for nearly 40 years, and it would be not realistic to begin comparing an individual to an organization, because when you talk about Impuga, right now Impuga cannot even pull. NUP has 57 member of parliament,
Yes.
and most of them, they have realized that the guy is not very electric the way people thought, and he doesn't pull grounds compared to the camp he left. So most of his colleagues have realized, and even on that very day when they had a serious, or what they call a serious opening, the people I thought would be there, like Joyce Bagala, current member of parliament of Mityana,
Yes.
member of parliament of Busiro, is it Busiro North, Busiro East, Meda Vega Segona. Yes. I expected such faces to appear, but they didn't appear.
Very
Meaning,
famous faces for the
and
NUP.
those are the people that NUP thought they are siding directly with Impuga. But now they left him with people like the biased individuals like Abedi Bwanika. We have who Lubega Mukaku, people that Mabike contested in 2020. He wanted the NUP ticket to contest for a mayor,
yes,
a Lord Mayor. But when NUP denied him a ticket, he even dropped his own political party, SDP, and contested as an independent candidate. Mukaku, the same thing. So you realize that most of these people are just annoyed group of people that they felt that they will be the only people to run the political party called NUP, but when they were not given chance for their self-interest, they had to run away and began blackmailing. But to a greater extent, I don't see any productive effort in what is being planned.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Zanup is losing a major political figure, Matthias Impuga, who one time was fronted as the leader of opposition. Where does this leave the National Unity Platform as a political party?
Well, according to what's on the ground, National Unity Platform is not a regional or a district political party. This is a national political party, and it's witnessed, it has displayed its capability in terms of leadership, and you will realize that some of us who participated deeply in the previous election will realize that NUP won election in most of the villages that some of us didn't expect, and branded it to be a national platform, whereby even when the government wanted to make the party look like it's a Uganda based, but we had people outside Uganda, more so at a presidential level. The gentleman, the flag bearer of the National Unity Platform, the current president of the National Unity Platform, Honorable Chagulanyi Sentamu, he moved all over the country, and he was being welcomed, and even the results were very overwhelming, and he had support. So comparing him with someone who has been an NUP, in fact, he's even on record that Honorable Chagulanyi has been the only member of parliament in Uganda who became the member of parliament, and he went to a national level. He competed seriously, and he competed seriously. Except the others, like Mao. Mao was an MP for 10 years. When he went, I think the highest percentage Mao have ever got was over 3% in 2011. He was an MP, and the rest of the other candidates that have been contesting, Mama Mbabas and so on, he's the only candidate who was an MP for only 4 years, and he went for national politics as a presidential candidate, and he, according to Byabakama's result, he was given 38%. But we know what the results were, because I was deep in that organization, and I saw on the ground, and I saw what transpired. So comparing him with an individual like the group of annoyed people, a group of people who are looking for survival in politics may not be it may not be a serious issue or a fair thing.
The people looking for survival is a story for another day. But Jonathan, when you speak about figures, I hear you speak about winning the election. How would you substantiate that to a mere Ugandan, an ordinary Ugandan? When you speak about winning the election, National Unity Platform, you are on the ground, and you speak about National Unity Platform winning the election. What do you mean when it wins an election and it's not declared victory?
Well, the question answers itself. We are in a dictatorial environment whereby the ballot may not solve anything. And even if I'm to quote Genome 7 once said, a mere ballot, it can never even scare him to get out of power. So we are here by the power of the gun. And it's not even the previous election, Kanokiza Besije, doctor, he has several won elections and he has not been declared, and we don't expect anyone to be declared when we are seeing such a situation, unless when if things have changed, because here the rule of law has been abolished. It is merely or majorly the gun that is operating here, so these things may not be put into practice even when someone has gone through an election, because there's no way you would go. What they call election rigging, it starts direct from campaigning. There's no way candidate will go for an election with a bulletproof. His supporters are being arrested, his bodyguards are being killed, and you would say even when such an individual gets 1%,
maybe it would be for a fact that that individual is having a pressure group of people who are violating the disciplines of the police. They congregate in places where they have not been permitted to gather by the Public Management Order Act.
In fact, the Public Order Management Act, it doesn't exist because it was challenged under the courts of law. Secondly, constitutionally, it is not the police to grant any individual power to hold a rally or gathering. Yes. The role of police in any gathering is to provide protection,
security and order.
So there's no way police would give us a go-ahead to go and gather. Your only thing to do is to consult the police and see how you can organize yourself and make the organization or the rally in a very peaceful way. Secondly, the regime, I think it has made those who are against it to look like they are rebels, look like they are people who are not good. Because you will realize that even currently, there are a lot of things that are happening, the abduction, the unfair arrest and so on. Right now we have Kanokiza Besige, who is under court martial, yes, on allegation, and is a civilian. We have NUP members who are under court martial just because of wearing a red beret. Yes. So it is very contradictory, and if one would say there's any fairness and injustice, we would openly support that.
So thank you, Jonathan. We are going to still talk about the DA, Democratic Alliance, something that Matthias Mpuga has fronted. It's a baby pressure group that has come up. So in your own mind, what should Matthias Mpuga do different from what the National Unity Platform has done under Robert Kyagulanyi to be able to challenge the current regime in the upcoming elections in 2026?
As I said before, the comparison is wrong. You are comparing two individuals who are even not nearly the same. These people have different backgrounds. I think you would draw it more broader to compare it with some other, to a greater level, other than comparing an individual with these people. These are totally different people. You cannot compare them. One is said is being nurtured by the kingdom and he has been nurtured in leadership and so on. Now, there's no way, because in politics, what we always consider is numbers.
Yes.
Because however good you would be in terms of articulation, and your articulation doesn't attract the population or doesn't being felt by the population, you can never have value. That's why in politics, even constitution-wise, there's a particular percentage. In Uganda, we will consider 50 plus 1 plus 1 vote, then you be declared as a president, and some other elective positions. So I would think the debate would be generalized and opened to a national level, whereby we would like the fighters, because merely this issue is not between NUP and Impuga, but it is a general issue whereby it is between the government and those who are anti-government, those who are looking for fairness and justice and rule of law. Simple. And if you even realize that maybe some of these people who are causing confusion, because the most important thing here is unity. Once these soldiers are united and are fighting their single opponent, it would be better for them, because the primary goal is to end the dictatorship. And when you really, when you find some other people who are helping the dictatorship to exist by fighting their fellow fighters, it looks unfair, and it will narrow our debate into individuals.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. You have spoken, and you say when you fight against your own selves, it looks like you are going down to individual basis. So what do you make of the fact that some members in the National Unity Platform do not agree with the fact that Impuga has to fall out and form the Democratic Alliance that bids to challenge the National Unity Platform?
It is not. I think according to you, I don't know whether it is challenging. So we have not yet come out to know exactly the motive of this group of people, whether they have come to challenge the existing political parties, more so the NUP that they came from, or they have come to challenge the status quo and take over power. So those two things, I think with the time we shall come to know.
Yes,
because right now, yeah, we shall come to know. But what I know, whatever they are talking about, it is against a political party, which I didn't want us to go direct that, because the major emphasis would be fighting the dictatorship. But of course, the dictatorship can also fund them to fight back the colleagues who are fighting for fairness and justice.
Thank you very much, Jonathan Ogola. Matthias Impuga is a matter that is on our table first. So, Jonathan, what do you make of the fact that Matthias Impuga, or what do you see in the future if Matthias Impuga got the guts to make Democratic Alliance a political party? And don't you think some of the members in the National Unity Platform would go with him to form a new home? Where does that leave you as the
Constitution-wise, we are given as Ugandans, we are given powers and authority to associate. We have that freedom to associate politically, religion-wise, and so on. So in Uganda, we have over 50 political parties that are registered, and some of them may not have individuals. We have political parties. Abedi has a political party where he's the only member. He's the president, he's a member, he's a secretary, he's everything. Yes. So a mere coming up with the political party is not an issue, because we have seen that with FDC. FDC, the first group of people that first left FDC was the reform agenda. The group of who? Federal, I think Federal Alliance. Federal Alliance that was led by Betty Kamia. That group broke off from FDC, I think around 2009, around there. From that, there's a group of ANT that also broke off around 2017 from FDC. There's also FDC Katonga that have officially left. So people can come up. The major emphasis is you can get misunderstandings. Misunderstandings are real, because even at a family level, everywhere there are misunderstandings. But the primary factor should stand. Whether Uganda begin your political party as a family, but if at all you begin something that you know you are fighting against one opponent, we can have so many players, so many teams fighting against one individual and having a same cause. It would be better. For it is fine, they should go where they find the peace and concentrate on what they are supposed to do, unless when they are when it is diversional, that they have been brought to execute some mission. But if the primary factor is to end dictatorship, I don't have any problem with anyone. Anyone can associate with anyone, for as long as is for the betterment of the country.
The numbers is something that is a very, 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 very great factor to play in ousting the current regime, because we have seen the opposition split up into so many pressure groups and now political parties. I believe as an individual that ganging up, having a sort of cohesion to fight against a common problem would do you better. What do you think about that?
It would be better. Of course, unity is power. Unity is power in everywhere, world over. But still, though, as I said, even politics is numbers, but there's also meaningless numbers, because not every number is necessary. Secondly, I remember in apartheid policy, in South Africa, they had several fronts that were fighting the whites with their policy, the apartheid, and even the ANC. There were so many groups that broke off from ANC to form their individual or some their groups to fight the apartheid. And even when the apartheid ended, in fact, history tells us that Mandela was not even the founding members of ANC, but was brought in because of the exposure, and they felt he was the candidate that would take over the matter and make the thing very vibrant. And of course, when Mandela came into the system, they captured him, they arrested him for so many years, and even his colleagues. There was even a group of people that thought Mandela was dealing with the whites. But at the end of the day, ANC became victorious, and the entire blacks from in South Africa. And after the winning, of course, they had some other formation that were supporting. And at the end of the day, the apartheid was ended. So here, we may not be united, because when you're fighting the dictatorship, most cases they plant their own people amongst you. As you're commanding that you go on front line. For them, they are holding you back, that you first wait. So strategies varies, and that's why I would say let everyone fight from wherever he is. If there are those that have been planted, it would be better, because it looks funny to find a political party like FDC or like NUP that have existed, and there are people within who are helping the regime to continue living, other than fighting the regime. So it is better for them to make their own formation, so that the people of Uganda, whereby the power of Uganda belongs from people, to judge them and know which people are right and which people are not meant to be dealt with.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Mpuga aside, we are going to have a very few minutes to delve into the Kizza Besigye Kifefe issue. I'm pretty sure you have heard about Kizza's arrest in Kenya, as he had gone to attend a book launch of the famous opposition political figure in Kenya, Martha Karua. So Besigye is intercepted and he's brought back into Uganda. Besigye is a former presidential candidate. So where does this picture leave the Ugandans and political activists that want to get into that space, fight for justice, fight for people's rights? Where does that leave Ugandans?
Well, I would like to feel, I would like to feel sorry with the situation that the Kano Kizza Besigye is in. Kizza Besigye is one of our founding fathers here in terms of politics, of looking for fairness and justice, and you cannot rule it out. He has nurtured most of the people, and most of us have grown up being inspired by him. Yes. So finding him in such a situation, it is very unfortunate, and it is very unfair. But to a certain extent, again, it is right, because majorly we always say there's no freedom and peace that will always come on a silver plate, because when you're in a situation whereby the law doesn't work, the constitution doesn't work, it is a rule of gun. We expect most of those things. That's why I've been seeing arrests, abductions, and so on. So the situation that Dr. Kizza Besigye is in, it is expected, because he's one of the forefront fighters. Secondly, he's not doing it for the first time. They have arrested him severally. In fact, worldwide, Besigye is the only individual with the highest record of being arrested worldwide. So the only thing we would pray is to allow the law apply, And the first thing is to pull Kanoki's Besigye from the court martial to civilian courts, because Besigye retired from the military so many years ago and is no longer serving military officer. So it would look funny to continue allowing him to be under the court martial, and yet it's not a military officer. And generally, the issue is political, because there is no basis that they are relying on to continue holding him in any.
Thank you, Jonathan Ogola. With interest of time, we would not want to speak so much about that matter, for the reason being it is a prejudice matter. It is a matter that has been presented before court. We do not want to contempt the matters of the court. Just in 30 seconds, what do you make of Martha Karua, a prominent figure that is joining Kizza Besigye's legal team, being denied a practicing license? What do you make of that?
Yeah, it is very unfortunate for the rule of law and for justice, more so from countries where we share boundaries. Kenya is just our brothers here. Kenya with Uganda, there's no difference, or because you have tribes, like when you go to Busia, you have Busia Kenya, Busia Uganda. So we share a lot of things in terms of trade, everything.
Common interests.
So we have a lot that we share in common. And secondly, Martha Karua is a seasonal politician, is a seasonal lawyer, and is a very informed fellow, whereby when we go to national level or regional level, it has tarnished the image of Uganda, because the way Kizza Besigye was pulled from Kenya, it was unrealistic. And Martha Karua coming into the equation to come and rescue, because the primary factor was Kizza Besigye had gone for a book launch of Martha Karua. So it was incumbent upon Martha Karua's self to come and rescue
Dr. Kizza
Besigye, because he was the primary factor for Kizza going to the book launch. So she came here, they denied her chance to be among the lawyers. But of course, as I said, those are the expected things that we know. It issues to do with the law in Uganda. They are not primary factors. They are not primary things that they always prioritize. So that's what came out of that.
Thank you, Jonathan.
The team is still pushing.
Are we seeing an invisible hand that has a political sort of motivation to infringe Besigye's rights in this situation? Or what do you make of that?
It's not only Besigye, but of course, whatever is happening here, it is political. Secondly, it is for the betterment of the existing government, because here anything to do with threatening the seat of the president, they can handle you with any kind of force to ensure that they put you down. So we expect that it may not happen to only Kizza Besigye. It has happened to so many people, whereby people have been arrested and they throw pistols and so on in their rooms, and they begin alleging that they have been found with the guns and so on. So this thing is very known, but everything behind this is political. Since we are going for a political nearing season, of course, General Museveni is trying to send a message that whoever is having an idea of not going to an election and he wants to take over power should begin fearing, because currently the situation that the message that has been sent to the region, General Museveni is sending even to the continent, that even when you run to South Africa and mobilize people with aims of putting down this government, they can get you without any resistance. So that's the only message that General Museveni has sent to the continent, out to the region, that in the case of anything, to put fear into Uganda, and that even what the constitution calls for, like peaceful demonstration, you're termed like a rebel, and they take you like someone who doesn't wish well to the country. So by doing that, of course, some people may fear, because the way Kizza Besigye was got, some would say the gentleman has intelligence, but generally it is politics, and the gun that is ruling this country.
Oh, Jonathan, that is all we have had time for in the State of the Nation for Uganda. So we move a leap to go into Africa. We have our sister nations, Ghana and Botswana, that had previously concluded their general elections. We begin with Ghana. There are cases of soaring inflation, corruption, failure to boost economies, joblessness, and there is a general election where we have 12 candidates contest for the top seat of Ghana, and we have two major figures, John Dramani Mahama and Mahama Baumia, that conceded defeat. So what is Ghana doing right that we are doing wrong, in the way that we cannot concede a defeat in a political election as Uganda?
Well, thank you so much once again. In politics, defeats are not merely concede or concede, but it depends on the factors that come always along with conceding a defeat. Secondly, I want to congratulate Ghana because Ghana has demonstrated. In fact, in Africa, I have countries that I'll give serious credit that have demonstrated what we call serious democracy. The first one is South Africa. I remember South Africa last year, this very year, I think, when they had an election. Yes. My own man that I like most, Julius Malema, he came openly immediately after election. He considered the defeat and realized he had not done much in a free and fair election, whereby he was given opportunity to hold rallies countrywide.
Yes.
So he got contented with the results. He got contented with the way police, military, and the government treated them, and he openly considered and said, no, the gentleman has taken over. Secondly, in our neighboring country here, I have Kenya. Kenya has been one of the countries that I've been respecting in terms of democracy, except the current situation in Ruto's regime, whereby it looks like General Museveni has penetrated and is trying to disorganize them democracy-wise. But Kenya is also one of them that have built their democracy, and they are moving in a good way. You'll talk about Ghana also. But now when you come back to Ghana, in the politics of Africa, Ghana is our founding country that has displayed good policies or good kind of politics that each country would, or every country would like. Because way back in 1957, when Ghana had just got independence, being headed by Kwame Nkrumah, it was the first country to get independence and to get rid of the whites from Africa or from Ghana. And I remember, if I'm to quote Kwame Nkrumah, he said in his first speech after chasing away the colonialists, he said, the independence of Ghana alone is meaningless unless it's the total liberation of entire Africa. And I remember Kwame Nkrumah didn't even rule for long. They had to overthrow him because he is the only person, the first African who came up with the idea of reuniting Africa to come up to what we call United States of Africa. And that idea would be very dangerous to the Europeans. So they had to fight him back. So for him, by making that statement, it simply meant that if Ghana alone being independent when the neighboring countries and the rest of the continent is not independent, it would simply mean the Europeans would come back and overthrow him. So for him, he wanted it to be a continental issue. That's why he had to collaborate with the Jomo Kenyattas of Kenya, Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, Sir Paul Milton of Uganda, and the rest of the nationalists by then to overcome the colonialists, and they eventually had to chase them away. Because you would realize that from 1957 up to around 1964, almost every country in Africa had gotten independence. Because from 58, 60, 61, 63, most of the countries were getting independence because of the power of Kwame Nkrumah. So talking about Ghana, we have our founder, grandfather, names of Kwame Nkrumah, who helped us. So the gentleman had ideas of making Africa a better continent, a united Africa, and in terms of leadership, to demonstrate better leadership and our politics. So that brings us back here. Mere fact that they went through an election and the incumbent defeated, it sends a very great message not only to Uganda but to the entire continent that Africans, it is very possible. It is very possible because we realize that John is called John who the gentleman that has won the election.
John
Mahama.
Dramani Mahama.
So John Mahama, he was an MP since 1997 to 2009. Why when he was an MP? Meaning it gave him exposure. He was a cabinet minister. From that he became even a vice president. So from the process of being in the position of vice president, unfortunately the president died and he took over to finish the term. In 2012 he contested for his first term. He won an election because for them they go for 4 years term.
Yes.
So from 2012, when he came back in 2016, he lost. He lost to this gentleman is called Nana Akufo. So when he lost in 2016, he came back again in 2020. Again he lost to Nana, but again he has regained in 2024, whereby he has won. But I also give a credit to Nana because Nana naturally he's at 80 years currently, and you would wish him to gain rest from the active politics, and for the 8 years he has ruled, I think it is enough for him, the old man, and lucky enough that the old man has considered the defeat and he is now going for retirement. So that's the great message that Ghana has sent to the entire continent and the entire world, that in politics, for as long as the political atmosphere and the campaigning period is fair, people can simply concede, because there's a situation where you realize that there's an area that you will not go to an election, sorry, you will not go to any vote. But when the ground has been leveled, you can consider and say, no, let me sit here and rectify my mistakes so that in the next time I can improve. So I think, but now maybe for longevity, John Mahama should also maybe serve for this only term and he retires, because he has been in the leadership and the politics of Ghana for so many years. But they have demonstrated the best, one of the best democracies, and they have demonstrated what you would all wish to have as a continent.
Thank you, Jonathan. John Dramani Mahama is a man who is not coming into the political atmosphere of Ghana for the very first time, garnering 56.55% in this general election. He is contesting against a person who has been in the same space with him, conceded defeat, and now Nana Akufo-Addo has to walk out of the top seat handling government to someone who has been his political opponent. What a beautiful message for Africa. So in a few minutes, what lessons does Africa have to pick from Ghana's elections?
Of course, I have said it. The message is very clear and strong to the entire continent, because Africa, we have everything that can make us cherish and can make us more developed in terms of resources. We have the brains here that can transform this continent, but majorly we always have issues with the leadership, and we have people who take themselves to be the owners of the continent, and they end up messing up with the continent. But now, as I said, the message is very strong. Ghana is continuously demonstrating what we call the fairness in terms of politics. And in fact, I even realized that this election was not even hyped. It was in a very moderate environment. Even the media didn't over-exaggerate the election, and it was in a free, whereby even people didn't even make it. People went openly to go and vote, but it wasn't taken as a do or die like it has been in other countries. And what I know, I think the population just they trust their system. That's why in most cases issues to do with the vote rigging, issues to do with the arresting the political opponents, those are the things that always escalate and make the election process to look very weird. But because I think because of the strong system that Ghana has, the population were ready to go and vote and let whatever comes out from the electoral commission to come out, and of course they had to concede. So that message also goes to electoral commission, because more in Africa, most of the electoral commissions, the heads, they don't trust them, because majorly the presidents of those countries, the presidents of those countries, they are the very first chairpersons of the electoral commission. There's no you will now announce something contrary to what the president wants, and you continue living and sitting in that position. So the independence of institutions is very paramount, because we will even realize that the same thing happened to Kenya when Chibokate, the chairperson of Wafula Chibokate, the chairperson of the electoral commission, he declared the Ruto and openly nullified whatever Odinga was saying, and the situation was normal. So, and moreover, Odinga was being backed up with the incumbent president, who was Uhuru Kenyatta. But still, the chairman of the electoral commission stood his ground, and he said, no, this is what we should take this path, because it's the only right path. So it was a credit to Kenya. It is still a credit to Ghana, because the major thing is the independence of institutions, whereby most of these countries have demonstrated.
Thank you, Jonathan. I pick one common point in the matters of Kenya. The then Electoral Commission of Kenya announced William Samoei Kipchirchir Ruto as the president-elect of Kenya, then throwing aside the hopes of the incumbent government then, which is the very fact that happened in Ghana. The main opposition party threw away the ruling party candidate, Mohamed Baumia. So in the very, very spirit, 58 years in power, Botswana loses the seat to Umbrella for Democratic Change opposition coalition leader. Why are African voters throwing out ruling parties?
Of course, for one to lose an election, it depends on so many factors. More so when the incumbent has not performed to the expectation. So, for as long as the incumbent president has not performed to the expectation, obviously, it is always obvious that the ruling government cannot survive. Yeah. Yes. So, as I was saying, Africans need better, and as the population, in most cases, they always expect a lot. They always expect a lot from the ruling governments in terms of services. And when they sit and compare what the expectation and the reality, and they realize that it was not measurable, or it was below standards, obviously, they cannot continue supporting such a government unless if it is by force. So Botswana has also displayed the very thing whereby the current government has been kicked out of power, and now comes another government whereby people have hopes into it. So we are only giving them a chance and see whether they also have to perform and change the situation, because majorly the primary factor is always providing services to the citizens and ensure that things go on or move on well for the betterment of the country. So we still give a credit to Botswana, like that we gave to Ghana, because they are also growing in terms of democracy. Because mere conceding an election and getting the incumbent out of power is an achievement, a very great achievement to any person who participates in an election.
Oh, thank you, Jonathan. So, Botswana, being one of the poorest countries in Africa, in 1966, at the point when they take on their independence, and 2003, after 58 years, they are at 2.5 population, one of the best GDP, over US dollar 7,000 per capita. How do you think the president-elect is going to tackle the common problems that are faced in African countries: corruption, failure to boost economies, joblessness? What is it that they should do different in Botswana that maybe could come to be incorporated in Uganda?
Well, it is fine. I think the only challenge is the expectation from the citizens is very different from the agenda of those who have come to power. The citizens would expect, or any other person would expect the leader to perform better. But the motive of that particular leader may be contrary to what it would expect. Because a politician is the person who would present A before you and he does B. So as you're expecting, that's why we always put what we call a period of election or of elections, whereby every after in Uganda, even after 5 years, people check and see, have you performed to the expectation? If not, they look for a better person. So I didn't get time to look through the agenda or the manifesto of the incoming president, but the very first things to anyone would wish to be tackled is, of course, the underdevelopment. Most of African countries have the same challenges. Unemployment is the same challenge. You talk about corruption, you talk about lack of market for their products. So most of those poor health facilities, education facilities. So putting together all those factors, it leaves Botswana in a very critical situation whereby the incoming president should just put much emphasis in developing the country and making each and everything better, because that population is very manageable. The population is very manageable if they can make it to develop and turn the status quo of Botswana.
Oh, thank you, Jonathan. That is what we have had time for. In the next couple of minutes, we are going to dive into the rest of the world. We are going to go into Syria. Tonight, we are going to talk about life after Abu Muhammad al-Assad, the president of Syria that has been ousted by the military. The prime minister of Syria hands power to the rebels. Israel launches strikes in Syria. Israel takes over some parts of the Damascus, which is the Syria capital. The world worries about a political vacuum. What does this mean to Syria if the military takes over Syria? What will they do to destabilize? What will they do, to stabilize Syria without the president?
Well, of course, according to the situation, the military has higher chances of taking over, like it has been elsewhere world over. So there's no doubt into that. Always military have that upper hand when there's that confusion. They normally come up and take over. But the disadvantage with that is that most of the military officers, they always say their minds are locked. They always think they are the only people that can exist in terms of leadership other than any other person. In fact, for them, not being them, they rather spoil. That's the challenge with the military officers, and they have been witnessed everywhere. Even in Uganda, I remember when we had the Idi Amin Dada, when Amin Dada when he captured the power, he even proclaimed himself to be the president for life, and he had to abolish the parliament, abolished everything, and was ruling Uganda by the gun and by himself. So all military officers, that's how they behave. You look at Burkina Faso, a country for the great man, the former great man called Thomas Sankara, who was the only military man who had motives and strong foundation of making Burkina Faso from the military government. He captured the power, but he had plans of transforming the country. Unfortunately, was killed. But the current president who captured the power, who came and people had a lot of hopes in him, he has also gone beyond. He has turned against the population, and I think this very week he suspended the prime minister. I think right now he's even ruling the country under state of emergency. So all his opponents, some he has arrested them, some has been now exiled. So the major thing with the military taking over power, that's the only challenge we always have, because for them they will continue confusing the population and citizens that they are preparing for a transition. For that, they may go back to the barracks and leave the electoral position or leadership to the civilians. But whenever they go nearing that period, again they destabilize the country intentionally by themselves and threatening the population and the security. Then again, they continue ruling or existing into those positions. So it is very unfortunate for Syria, and this situation may not end in time soon to come, but it's going to affect them, of course, economically, politically, and even security-wise. And we expect even people to lose life in such a situation. So it is very unfortunate for a country to go into such a mess.
We have seen more than 600,000 army camped in the Damascus capital, Russian army camped in the Damascus capital, and we have seen so many European countries pick up interest in Syria, like Israel, USA. What could be the interest of foreign governments in the Syria?
World over, when such situations happen, of course, there are self-interest of different countries. You can't rule it out. More so now, this issue is in Europe. You will see, you will realize that most of the countries are now going into their battles, because you know it very well that Russia and America, they don't rhyme. So they always want to display their strength in such environments. The same thing that is happening in Ukraine. So whenever there's some disorganization of that kind, Russia comes in, America also comes in terms of support. They are supporting them, and they will take camps. The other one will be supporting the current government, the other one will be supporting those who are against the government. They facilitate them with the weapons, military hardware, and even finances. So the major thing is always the powerful countries always come and fight into these wars, and they take the interests. And we realize that sometimes they decide, when such countries have minerals, these people come in with the interests, and they end up continuing to destabilize these countries for their selfish interests. So we can't rule it out that most of the European countries have involved, and they are continuing to involve in such situations.
We have seen a situation like that in Libya, where former president of the United States of America came for Muhammad Gaddafi, and up to date there has been a state of destabilization. Socio-economic situation has never come to rhyme to what happened. So we see top rebel Julani Muhammad Abu appointing Muhammad al-Bashir, former Al-Qaeda leader, as prime minister to lead the transition. Do you envisage a peaceful transition of power in Syria?
Yeah, it would be true or not, depending on which factors and who is beyond what. Because the same thing happened to Libya. I remember Libya, when Muammar Gaddafi was killed, there was a government that is called internationally recognized government that was put by America and so on. But still, there were again camps that were still fighting that very government, being sponsored by other European forces. So even that the transition that they are talking about currently, the transition may not be very possible, because the insecurity that is still in the country, it may disorganize everything. As people are planning to organize and make transitions, other those who are against it will be funded to fight the transition. So we realize that the confusion may continue existing for the self-seekers to continue existing for the betterment of what their interests are. So I doubt whether the transition may come in very fast and may be welcomed by all forces.
That and much more is something that we wait upon to see in Syria. We have 15% of the Syrian army in the Damascus capital, 60% of the former president of Syria, Muhammad al-Assadi's rebels, in the same capital. 25% of the Kurdish forces that are backed up by USA in the same capital. What lessons does Uganda have to pick from this? A country that is fighting and very hungry for change.
Obviously, whenever institutions are not given attention to, and whenever institutions are not given chance to grow and become independent, this is what happens, because the instability always comes in and always give a long-term destruction. So the only lesson is in such situations, of course, the political question in any country is very important. You can develop a country in any way with all better infrastructures, but once the political question is not answered, whatever has been developed in so many years can be put down in 1 minute. So the lesson is the institutions in Uganda have to operate. And by doing, of course, when institutions in Uganda become independent, the existing government can cease to exist. So we are here by the gun. In Syria, it's the gun now ruling, and elsewhere, whenever there's a gun ruling, there's always that situation where the power of the people will always come to surpass the power of the gun, and it is incumbent upon the citizens of such countries to always fight, to change the status quo and make a country the better place they would wish to stay in for the rest of their lives.
We have seen the current situation in Syria with so many other countries like Libya, like Iraq, the former state of Saddam Hussein. So does it mean there is a huge price to pay for you to change government? Or do you think we should do something different to ensure a peaceful change of power in Uganda?
Yeah, true. It is very huge. The price of the price that is paid for injustice is always very huge and is very expensive, because you realize that, for example, here in Uganda, a government that have existed for 40 years, once such a government leaves power by force, most of the things will turn against it. And the little that we have achieved in 40 years, it may end in 1 minute, as I said before.
Yes.
So, in a current situation where we are in a situation that the transition may not be very possible, because the transition in most cases starts with the incumbent. I always tell people that the future of Uganda predominantly lies in the hands of General Museveni. The single statement or single step he will ever make, it will either take us back to 80s or give us a new page for the future of this country. If he risks to give this country to any of his relatives to take over from him for so many years he has been here, it's going to affect us. So the best thing is to openly allow the transition to take place, and he, in fact, he even has to be the leader of the transition, to accept that whatever he has done, whether he has been messed up or not, to concede and sit on round table with the other stakeholders to rectify whatever he has been messed, and he freely leaves the power into the terms of having a peaceful transition. Otherwise, we may also end the way the other countries have been, because when you look at Libya used to be the superpower of Africa. Libya has the best environment that every country would wish to be in terms of employment, everything in Libya. But they ended up demolishing and destroying everything in a few days. And totally right now, Libya has been in anarchy for so many years, since 2012 up to date, just because of the political question. The gentleman could provide everything, but whenever you could talk about the leadership of the country, you become a criminal, you become a rebel, they kill you, they exile you. So they ended up, whatever they had achieved in 38 years or 42 years that Gaddafi had ruled, it came back on ground, and everything stopped from there. So the political question is always paramount, that any leader that comes to power and fails to give a serious attention to the political question, how people should be governed, how the institution should be given no independence. It ends in confusion, and the final thing is the situation that Libya is in, Somalia is in, and other countries are in.
Oh, thank you very much, Jonathan. The state in Somalia is a good story for another day. Somalia and Ethiopia keep fighting for the greater North Somaliland. That is a good story for another day. But this is an interesting conversation. Thank you very much, Bwana Jonathan, for having and making time for this. So join us on our platform, Kim Katoto Show. Will always be airing every day, every week. It is a 60-minute show. Please subscribe, give us a like, and you'll keep us going. Thank you, and God bless you. God bless Africa.
Thank you too.